Good morning yet again for another short video installment on this 42 Continental. And we're going to be working on it today. Definitely found a lot of problems over the last few weeks. Namely, today we're going to tackle the most major problem with this car, and that is a bad clutch. Though it is drivable and doesn't slip, the words clutch chatter would be an understatement. It's more like whiplash and shakes the whole car. It's so bad. And upon inspection, after removing the floor panel in here and inspecting the pressure plate, as I rolled it around, I can see that the arms are not evenly loaded, which indicates that the pressure plate's got failed springs in it or is severely warped. So we got to do the old classic, remove the rear end just to remove the transmission. If you have older Fords, built 48 back, as they say, the proper Henry Ford variety with buggy springs and torque tube axles, this is a common occurrence to do this type of work. Although, nice thing is with this car, the access to the transmission, once the front seat is taken out and the whole floor panel around it removed, it's pretty much wide open. It's really not a bad job, and removing the rear axle on these isn't too bad either. Just takes a little time. You can see I've removed the back bumper, and the Cobra light on the back was broken and damaged, and now you can see the dented tire. And like I said, I do have the replacement coming. I've got one, but I have another one on the way that's even nicer. And the back bumper had to be taken off because this car just barely fits in my garage bay. And to kind of give myself a little bit of leeway room when I jacked it up, I took the bumper off. And with the door closed, I have maybe a ½ inch between the back of the car and the door, but enough to do what I got to do. Of course, I've got it supported up on a set of wheels, so it's sitting fully loaded on its suspension in the front, and a pair of good heavy jack stands in the rear. And I got the car fairly level, slightly down in the back, ever slightly, but not much. And then we will use the engine hoist cherry picker to put a strap around the transmission and lift it up, slide it back once I get the axle out, and then take it right out the passenger door. Very much like pulling an engine out of an old early style Econoline van. Not much dissimilar to it than that, and I've done quite a few of those in my day as well. But this is actually what you see under the carpets. You can see where they patched the floors. They covered up a couple soft spots. I wouldn't call them exactly patches. And they sealed the heck out of them from underneath. And there's not enough wrong with it for me to justify even taking that stuff out and redoing it. And underneath the carpet, it was actually this clean underneath the carpet. I mean, the guy that had this car must have really kept it in a good, clean environment, because there really wasn't very much in the way of rodent stuff in it, or anything of that nature, or mold or anything. So we're off to a good start, it looks like, anyway. But thought I'd just spit out another video real quick. Take a look down under here and see the old buggy spring and Ford banjo style axle, buggy spring suspension, full floating differential. But though covered in looks like a lot of road grime, undercoating, and road tar, this should come apart pretty good. It looks like it's pretty well preserved underneath all of that. You can see the previous owner the estate, when they tried to sell the car, had taken it and had some work done on it. They put a new gas tank in it, a brand new tank in this car, and did some work on the fuel lines and gas tank sending unit and things of that nature. So they saved me a lot of work there. It's kind of nice to have something good to start with. But pretty simple setup otherwise. It's very classic Ford setup. So anyhow, I'll post this up later today for those of you wondering what's next for this. Another look at the famous or infamous, depending on how you like to look at them, V12 engine. But as you can see, I'm very tight to the wall here. It's about only a half an inch to the door in the back. But this will be a fun job today. Shouldn't take me very long to get it out. But the one thing I will note on video, this car originally had the Liquimatic transmission, one of the very few that did. It was only offered in 42 on Lincolns and Mercurys. Ford recalled them all or bought them all back, something of that nature, but you can see down here below you have 4 bolts holding the transmission to the back of the engine at the top, and the 4 that normally bolt into the lower cover portion of the oil pan do not line up. Can't quite see them all, but you can see there's an open space there. That oil pan is different between the Liquimatic and a regular manual trans. That was never changed. The only thing, whoever did this conversion only changed the transmission. They didn't change the oil pan, nor did they change the Liquimatic badge on the dashboard, which is actually part of a kit you were supposed to buy to do this. I think it might have been just a Ford service garage that did this. But this has been this way pretty much its entire life. And I'm going to try to at least make some stabilizer brackets to go down to that oil pan to thread on to at least stabilize it for now. And I think later in the future I will replace the oil pan with one that lines up with this gearbox. Because from what I can see, the only thing that actually is different is the oil pan. I had heard stories that there might be even a different bell housing and that a conventional transmission will not fit. And after looking at the only couple pictures of probably one of the only known Liquimatics on the that are out there, it's actually that particular transmission was attached to a 42 Mercury V8 in the early V8 Ford Museum. I was fortunate enough to find those pictures on the internet, and I can guarantee you it does not look anything like what you're looking at that's in here now. You can see that I've already pulled the cover back off the top so I could see down in the clutch, and when I push the pedal in, I can also see the throwout bearing is slowly going out of square. It's definitely not staying square with the transmission input shaft collar, so it's moving around. And I also suspect that inside that joint is the U-joint is also possibly bad, and maybe even the front bearing on the torque tube, which I'll be addressing those issues. You can see this one, like all Liquimatics, had the overdrive, and they used the overdrive as part of the automatic shifting mechanism. It's kind of hard to see because I'm on one side of this thing. But you can see that there's all the overdrive and all the clutch linkage. And there are definitely things on here that don't exactly line up right around the bottom of that engine. It's really hard to see, but you can definitely see that the bolts don't line up at all in that oil pan. But I'm just approaching this as just fixing what's broke where needed as needed, and not fixing anything that is not broke. And there's actually surprisingly very few things really wrong with this car. All the lights in it work. all of the, pretty much the power antenna is about the only thing I can find on this car that doesn't work. The vacuum power windows work. The radio works. All the interior accessories seem to work, including, and I made these boxes to cover them up so I don't chance damaging them. Lift that up, the under seat heaters, and those work, and they work quite well. So a lot of this car is just really very good otherwise. And it'll be, hopefully with a little elbow grease and luck, this should be a pretty good driver, and that's my intent. I don't intend to repaint it or do any cosmetic restoration to it. It'll be driven and enjoyed as is. So everything you see inside the car is original. It's kind of hard to see because of kind of bad lighting, but I've got it all covered up and ready to go. And I even have my engine hoist over there folded up. I'll be unfolding that later on today to lift the transmission out of there. And even decided to set some dollies up on the floor. Good old Harbor Freight. Some small furniture dollies to set the rear axle down on, and then I can use them to help slide it back. And I only have to go back, really only have to go back about a foot to gain enough clearance to get the transmission out, and it will easily slide back that far. So anyway, with that, I'll be signing off this installment, and I hope everybody's out there safe and have a good day. Thank you.